Everybody, this is Scott from Untitled Hypnotherapy, and welcome back to video 3 of how to cure depression. And today, in talking about the human needs map. So if you are someone either with depression, either someone with anxiety, or you're a therapist, like you're a coach, an expert, a psychologist, psychiatrist, a GP, a hypnotherapist, a counselor, whatever it is that you're doing. The last couple of videos, the first one we were talking really about the symptoms, the past, present, future stuff. How anxiety and depression work, how they come through, what are their channels. Anxiety being too much energy, thinking about the future. Depression being not enough energy, thinking about the past. That difference between acute and chronic. So if somebody gets sad one day because something happened to them, that's an acute sadness. That's potentially an acute anxiety or an acute depression. It's short term, less than 3 months. Chronic is when things have gone on for 3 to 6 months or more. And so when we're talking about how to cure depression, we're talking about how to cure chronic depression, not just, like if someone's had a car crash and they lose their car, they're going to feel the loss. If somebody's experiencing the death of a loved one or a separation, they're going to feel the loss. We're talking about how to cure chronic depression and anxiety as well in this. But let's get into this human needs map, because like in the first video, again, like talking about the symptoms, how it came through. The second video was really to do with the subconscious mind and how to create programming. Direct suggestion comes through the senses, the pictures, the sounds, the feelings. Again, if you're coming to the events in Melbourne, in Knox, or if you're getting the replay, it does come with that bonus called How to Hypnotize an Addict, which basically shows you our entire hypnotic technique. It's only $17 early bird or $60 door price. And it's going to be amazing. So much Q&A and so much kind of ability for people to come and bring their questions and really kind of pick the brains of what it is that we're doing. So with the human needs map, let's get straight into this. So the first two parts that I want you to take a look at, you remember how we had anxiety's too much energy thinking about the future, and depression's not enough energy thinking about the past. These two techniques, before we get into the 5 needs, these two techniques are things that everybody needs to do more of. People need to expect more out of their lives and ask for more. Will you babysit our kids so that we can go out to the movies or something? Will you pay 10 grand for my next program? Will you, whatever it is, will you go out on a date with me? Can I have that promotion? Can I talk at your wedding? Whatever. Will you marry me? Whatever it is. They need to ask more, because a lot of people get their dreams stolen because they've been hurt in the past, and the future's not giving them any extra opportunities because they're not getting out there anymore. They're not getting back on the horse. They're not even asking. So the answer is no every time that somebody doesn't ask. When we were talking about the difference between positive and almost neutral or negative psychology, positive would mean go out and achieve, go out and set higher standards, versus kind of things like more ACT or happiness trap, where it's about acceptance, or The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, that book, which is fantastic. People do also need to accept more. So once you've asked, the answer could be yes, or it could be no, or it could be yes but, or no because, or whatever the answer is. Accept is about, don't make the answer mean something. Will you marry me? Yes or no? If they say no, it's really about accepting it so that you can get back out there and ask again. Because when people ask and they're like, oh, he or she said no, therefore my whole life is not going to be any good, they haven't really accepted, so that they can't open up space in their life to ask somebody else or to make a meaningful connection with somebody else. If somebody asks for the promotion and they get a no, or they might get a yes, but if they get a no and they haven't accepted it, again, it doesn't open up any space for them to move on and ask someone else for some other promotion. People need to accept. Will you go on a date with me? It could be no. You still asked, but it didn't mean anything, because the brain is still programmed for this old world that does not exist anymore, that if you get rejected, that's it, you're dead. If you got exiled from your tribe, that would be it. That would be game over. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in the world where the alpha is the person who asks and then accepts. Asks, get some yeses, get some nos, accepts the nos, accepts the yeses. It's just an ask. It's not a demand. There's no certainty in the ask. The only certainty is that you're certain that you will ask. You have no idea what the answer is until you've asked and allowed the answer to come. So this is two things that really do help with anxiety and really do help with depression, to be able to move on to basically excitement and peace. Excitement and peace. Will you do our next program? Yes, cool. I accept that you'll do it. Will you do our next program? No. Great. I accept that you won't do it. But someone else will. So let's get into this. So the human needs map. These 5 things that start with the letter V, these are different from habits. You just can't program them away because they will continue to come up. Just like the need to eat. If somebody doesn't eat anything ever, they'll starve to death. If somebody doesn't drink water ever, they'll dehydrate to death. So these are emotional needs that must be fulfilled. So when you ask more, you're much more likely to be getting yeses, but at the same time you're going to be getting no's. If you can accept that, if you could basically make rejection mean nothing, and acceptance doesn't have to mean as much as well. Like, don't over-celebrate, like then when you go, will you go on a date with me, or will you buy my $10,000 program? If they say yes, cool, that's great. It's not a big deal. Will you go on a date with me, or will you buy my $10,000 program? No. Okay, great. That's not a big deal. Make things less of a big deal, and make your dopamine hit get... You get your dopamine hit from production instead of consumption. So instead of consuming alcohol, consuming cigarettes, consuming heroin, consuming any of those things which are basically there to try to make you feel better, but actually cause a more negative future, you want to get your dopamine hit from production. And so that's what we're going to talk about in the 5 human needs. How do you get your dopamine hit? How do you feel good about yourself while doing things that still make your future better? And so again, like, even though this is a course on how to cure depression, the previous video we talked about how the subconscious doesn't understand what a knot is. So it doesn't know what knot depression is. That's why we're moving this course through this next looking glass of, well, if not depression, then what? And it's about getting these human needs fulfilled so that you can feel real joy, still asking and getting rewards, and accepting as the rewards come or the rejections come, and allowing for all of it just to be just fine, just calm. So victory is the first of the human needs. And so what we're talking about is that it's not actually just about your survival, it's about the feeling of victory, the feeling of importance, the feeling that you're doing something that matters, the feeling that you're doing stuff which is going to secure your future. So to go through those, the first one is in being up to date. So if you're someone who doesn't write lists, then it's very easy to feel anxiety or depression, because if the brain has to constantly memorize its 7 favorite anxieties, it goes, oh, well, maybe I'm not loved enough. By this time of my life, I was supposed to have achieved more. I don't have as much money or as much relationship or career fulfillment as I was supposed to have by this time of my life. And then, my car's not as good as it should be. And there's other people out there who basically are just doing so much better than me. Yeah, they are, but you don't know the private torments or hells or what they're going through. You don't even know if they're happy. So it shouldn't be about comparison. It shouldn't be about memorizing the 7 favorite anxieties. It's about write lists, journal, write what you want to do, and let that piece of paper remember it for you. So kind of like if you were to go for an exam, and you just study and you remember so much, and you could tell anybody about anything that you've studied, but then as soon as you've done the exam, it's like your brain just goes, phew, I can relax now, I can forget everything. So it's kind of like that, the same as with anxiety. Once you write it down, once you kind of say, these are the things that were bothering me, and now it's just been scheduled as to-do lists, now I can kind of relax. I can feel that my victory is steps. It's a process, and I can leave the process open, and I can walk away from it when I need to rest. Exercise is a really important one, and I do tend to recommend that even if you exercise at night, it's fine. But morning's kind of better for one reason. The brain, when people talk about the brain, they tend to think of it as existing in a mythical realm. Like it's your emotions, it's your personality, it's your IQ, it's your thoughts. And yes, it is all of those things. But the brain's also an organ. So when you think about, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, liver, stomach, any of those things, any organs, you tend to treat them with that respect of thinking, well, they require health. But when talking about the brain, people kind of forget sometimes that the brain's an organ too. If the body's sick, all of the organs are kind of sick. If the body's tired, kind of all the organs are kind of tired. And so when you exercise, you wake up the body, and the brain's part of the body. When you exercise, you wake up the brain. You become smarter because you moved your body. Also, exercise is important for draining the lymphatic system, where you know how there's the heart, which pumps blood through the circulatory system. It's a closed system. The lymphatic system is also a liquid, kind of like the circuitry, but the lymphatic system is like a layer of goo, or whatever you want to call it. It's a layer of liquid which is under the skin, under the integumentary layer. So with that, you need to move the body in order for toxins to drain. Exercise does so much. It stretches you, it strengthens you, it wakes the brain up. And if you have a list and exercise, those things are amazing. And then journaling is get your thoughts out. So if you're worried about stuff, journal. If you're planning some stuff, journal. Just keep journaling. There's been high performance studies that show that people who journal are smarter and more productive because of the journaling. So you know, like when talking about how the brain is only about the size of a fist, the middle of it's mostly blood. You know how like there's hemispheres, so there's the left hemisphere of the brain, there's the right hemisphere of the brain, and how those two things communicate. People tend to think that it's the corpus callosum, or it's that little line in between the brain as the only channel where they talk to each other. It's not true. Yes, the corpus callosum connects the two hemispheres of the brain, but isn't there kind of one more way that the two hemispheres communicate? And so we're getting to the journaling, but how do the hemispheres of the brain communicate if the corpus callosum is not the only way they talk to each other? If, you know, the physical connection between them. It's to do with your inputs and outputs of life. So that if you have an idea in your left hemisphere of your brain and you write it down and then you read it, that goes back into both hemispheres. Your right hemisphere picks it up. If you have a thought and you say it out loud and then you hear it, the other hemisphere picks it up. The kinesthetic feeling sensation of writing something also helps to basically share that thought with different parts of the brain. So journaling actually gets ideas from like your logical, your creative, and basically shares them to other parts of the brain and makes you smarter. Another human need, valued, connection, other humans. If people go into solitary confinement, they go nuts, especially if they're there for too long. So the rules of the valued is that you need to feel safe, you need to feel that you can enter that relationship, friendship, tribe, family, whatever it is, without having to have your guard up all the time and have adrenal fatigue and keep eating because like eating sugar and glucose because they won't stop asking you questions, or that they won't let you relax, or they won't let you kind of just be safe. But as much as you need the safety, you also need the resonance. Like you want them to, with the Marco Polo effect, when you ask them for their time, they may not give it to you straight away, but they get back to you, or they schedule it, or they plan it with you. So safe and resonant. It's like you feel that you can relax, but you can also vibe with them. You can be low with them at peace. You can be high with them with it, and not high drugs. High with them with excitement, with planning, with producing, not consuming. Sometimes consuming if it's a lunch. And then you need to feel trust that what you say is what you do. What they say is what they do. That's one of those human needs, is the valued. Another one is variety. If you're too focused all of the time, again, it drives people nuts. Like obviously, like anxiety, depression, they can be caused by a lack of these 5 Bs being fulfilled. Novelty. What have you done to make your life different recently? Different in a safe way. Have you gone a different way to work recently? Have you eaten a different food that you haven't had for a while? Have you gone to a place? Have you talked to a person you haven't talked to recently? Novelty is a human need. If you don't have variety, if you don't have something that kind of stirs you up, your brain falls into a rut. And a rut is basically kind of like a coffin with the ends knocked off. It's kind of, you don't want to die in the one position. You want to move. You want to do different things with your day once in a while. What's that book you've been putting off? What's that painting that you wanted to create? Maybe like if you've had a little bit of money come through recently, you can buy a second canvas instead of just painting over the old picture all the time. Do something where you get to learn something. Do something where you're not just watching the same news channel all the time, just picking up all the negativity of the world. Watch the other side. If you're left wing, go listen to a right wing or whatever. If you're right wing, go listen to a left wing or whatever. It's like whatever you do something that is different. Or maybe leave politics out of it altogether. But bring novelty into your life. Brainstorm. Sometimes we use the octopus, which is the, it sounds weird, with a piece of paper Drawing a circle and then 4 legs off one side and 4 legs off the other, it's just the rapid mind map. So when you draw the circle with the 4 and the 4, come up with ideas by just write down 8 ideas of things you can do for novelty. You're more likely to come up with better ideas by writing them down, getting the corpus callosum to not be the only thing responsible for sharing ideas, and get it moving. Like your journaling helps with the novelty. With rewards, this is part of variety as well. I've worked so hard this week, or so hard today, and it's all been in service of other people, curing addiction, curing depression, whatever it is. Where's my thing at the end of the day? Where's my thing at the end of the week? The best time for you to plan rewards for yourself is when you don't need them. It's like when they say, go shopping on a full stomach, you'll buy less. If you basically could have been behaving like one of those people who go, all right, it's Monday morning, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to work on money, relationships, and health, but not happiness, not my personal satisfaction. That's an unprofessional need to work on. I'm going to put that onto the side because it's not important. Who cares about happiness? I'm just going to make sure that my house is paid off, my family is fed, and everyone else is happy, and that I've done my gym work and have eaten salad. But where's your reward? By lunchtime every day, you should have worked out what you want to do for fun that night. If you leave it to that night, you can't be bothered usually coming up with a healthy idea or a good idea of what to do for fun. So then it becomes sometimes, is it the alcohol? Does it you just feel kind of disconnected because you haven't done anything at 9 in the morning to make sure you've got someone to talk to at night? Or by Wednesday at least, you should have worked out what you want to do on your weekend. If you're a shift worker that works weekends and has days off, translate for this. But what we mean is that by your mid-work week, if you haven't worked out what you're going to do for your break days, then by the time your break days turn up, it's too late then to start really coming up with great ideas. Start working on the next one. And then play. So play is kind of like rewards. Like play is where you get to do something that is unfocused. So with victory, sometimes it's to do with be up to date, do your exercise, get through your list. But play is where you've got to do something that kind of doesn't count. Do something where it's kind of silly. It's like that I'm painting a picture. I'm not even an artist. I'm not even great at painting. But I want to. I just want to have a play with it. There's a puzzle. I just want to have a go. There's a Sudoku. I'm doing something that relaxes me, but also relaxes me with variety. The next are the human needs. Vacation. So this, again, we've just come up with words that start with the letter V to fit into the models that we're using. Vacation doesn't necessarily mean go to Hawaii. What we mean by it is that you need to have healthy boundaries. When are you off? When are you scheduled off? When are you scheduled on? Don't be answering emails and phone calls from bed past 12 at night, past midnight. It's a bad idea. You need healthy boundaries. But boundaries have two sides to them. They have no, I'm not available. And on the other side of that boundary, they have yes, I'm available. So when you're off, that's when you can make promises to people to say, yes, I'll get back to you within work hours. Yes, I'll get back to you at the time that, suits me, but we're going to schedule it because this is my bedtime or this is my playtime. This is not my handle everybody else's poor project planning skills time. Whatever the number is in your country, 000 for Australia, 911 for America. I should know the one for Europe or for England. But basically that emergency services are emergency services. If you're not somebody who is a first responder, if you're not ambulance paramedic, if you're not a firefighter, if you're not police, if you're not emergency services, then don't behave like emergency services. If somebody comes to you in a panic and it's your bedtime and they're your customer or they're your whatever, you shouldn't even know about it. Turn your phone off. Your job is not emergency services. They can call up emergency services for that. Your job is strategy. When would you like to hang out for play with me? When would you like to hang out for work where we focus? And when would you like to just go away because it's my time and I just want to sleep and watch Netflix? Circadian rhythm is so important that people are happier when they wake up at roughly the same time each day and go to bed at roughly the same time each night. You can have exceptions to this. Sometimes you can do it. If you're an adult, you can make these decisions, and it's great. Once in a while, do an all-nighter, do a holiday, but it's got to be the exception and not the rule. Your circadian rhythm depends on you waking up, usually with the sun if you can, and going to sleep, or at least calming as the sun sets, and then sleeping at night. Have a rhythm. Turn things off, turn them back on. Turn your phone off at night, turn it on in the morning. And calm. You actually need rituals that allow you to unfocus. Whether it's meditation, with the ebook, if you haven't had the ebook already, ask me for it through whatever channel you've got this course. There are, or just ask me for the MP3s. I listen to these hypnosis MP3s too, because they knock me out within 3 minutes, and you can't overdose on them because they're not a chemical. It's not sleeping tablets, not even melatonin. It's a hypnosis audio. So I can listen to it all night if I want to. A 40-minute track, 3 minutes I'm asleep, I never hear the end of it because I'm asleep. So you need calm rituals. You need things where the 2 rules of calm, in order to create calm, has nothing to do with fold your legs into a pretzel doing yoga or whatever. That's a choice. You can do that or not. Staring at a candle, chanting, running, whatever, they're all accessories. They're all personal choice. The 2 actual rules of calm is, one is time must pass, because you can't snap your fingers and be calm. Time must pass. The same as with putting a baby to sleep. You don't put a baby to sleep by going, snap, baby's asleep. Time must pass. The second rule of calm is you need to be doing something that's not victory related, something which is unfocused. It could be watching TV, it could be knitting, it could be chatting to a friend, it could be staring at a candle. It cannot be doing things which have urgent deadlines that your whole life would fall over if they're not achieved. And it cannot be things where you're staring at white or blue light frequencies. That would just be horrible. Because your circadian rhythm depends upon you not looking at sunlight looking light at night. Which means no screens. No screens. Vitality. This is also a need, because I'm just kind of sort of going back to just the vitality. There's these 5 things, again, in this order of urgency. You need to first breathe. The way to breathe to create the most calm is rhythmic. However long it takes you to breathe in should match however long it takes you to breathe out. You do need sleep, and it's the next most urgent. Have a circadian rhythm. Make sure you're going to sleep at the same time roughly every night, waking up at the same time roughly every day. Hydration. Make sure that you're drinking water. Eat clean, and exercise. If you do those 5 things, besides also, like, if there's illness, see a doctor. These 5 things are health related things that create health, not necessarily cure illness. You might see the doctor for the cure of illness. These are things you need to do, things that create health, because health is not just the absence of sickness. Health is something that you can actually have, like, instead of just being below the line of like minus health, you can get healthier and healthier. There's no real limit to health. You can continue to get healthier. So the way I'd like you to look at all this stuff is like, say that there was the things you want in life. They're the start. You want to get money. You want to get health. You want to get relationships. You want to get happiness. If those things aren't present, if those things aren't being fulfilled, depression can be the result. But this is what happens to people. This is how they get angry. This is how they become sad. This is how they get the acute measures, or the acute symptoms, which then can become habitual, long-term, chronic symptoms. Imagine that you've got, like, well, there's the start line. There's a finish line somewhere down the track, and you just can't see into the future yet. It just hasn't happened yet. You can't see the rest of this map. So you follow one of these lines, going, one of these lines is my path to happiness. And then it gets blocked. This is where anger, panic, frustration come up. This is where the false emergencies come up. Of like, my whole life is over, what am I going to do? I've had the car crash, my whole life is over. I've been dumped, my whole life is over. I've been separate, whatever it is. Your life's not over, but you've got a pathway and it's being blocked. The only 2 things you can do at this point, where you've got a goal and there is a blockage in the way, the only 2 things you can do, one or the other, look for another pathway or take a break. If you are not in the mindset because the brain is panicking and tantruming, your first goal is just to create calm. Yeah, there's been a car crash. Yeah, there's been a big bill. Yes, there's been a big hole in your wall or whatever because termites came out, whatever. The first thing you can do is sometimes not even fix the problem. The first thing you can do sometimes is to work on your state of mind. Sometimes this means to let it happen and express, journal perhaps, talk to a friend, give yourself time to calm. Other times it means just taking a break. Don't fix it, put it off to tomorrow. Because sometimes people are not in a situation where they can even look at alternatives. So let's say they regroup the next day. And here's another pathway. Then they try that one. That one gets blocked. They fail at it. It didn't work. It's like, say you want to go to a friend's house. That's your outcome. That's your destination. You know you're going to get there. But along the way, here we go, that there's a detour. There's a blocked road. If you know where you're going, you can either take a break and go, relax, that's okay, there's a detour. But eventually you're going to be looking for other pathways to your friend's house. That's why journaling about your goals is so important, because then it means these blocked pathways don't matter. Because then you allow yourself to be open to the fact that this is a process. So you can be happy, but you've got to stay in the game. Ask more, accept more, keep them open, but then walk away from them. And then you take another pathway. And you're like, I have no idea if this is going to work or not. But you know what? I've just had 2 blocked pathways. Maybe I'm just going to not even try because the last 2 didn't work. They're like, yeah, I get the last 2 didn't work. But either take a break or look for another pathway and run with that pathway. So this is again where you need to ask more and accept more. Ask, try again with another pathway, accept the other one didn't work. So you take a look at this pathway. You're like, all right, well that one let me through. Now, remember money, health, relationships, happiness, it came through, great, there's my dopamine hit because it worked. You don't want to over-rely on these two. Don't over-celebrate these wins. Another way to look at this thing instead of start and finish, because you never really started, never really finished. It's not like life starts here and then you get, the bill paid and that's the end. Because there's another and another map. But it's just that in advance, all you could see is from the start to a few meters. You couldn't see how all time was going to work out. But instead, thinking about the map like this: ask more, accept more, and it's not start and finish, it's just continue, try a pathway. If it doesn't work on your 5 values, because in between, see there's the tick, there's the cross. You're trying to get victory fulfilled or valued, variety, vacation, vitality. We've given you the list of the things to work on within them. Keep doing those things. Ask more for these 5 things. Ask more for everything that's listed under these 5 values. 5 human needs. And accept when there's a blocked pathway. Take a break or try again. And then, as you try again, one time you get through. And then that's not the end of your story either. You just continue. So this is a completely different approach from how to cure depression than what a lot of people think about. But what I want to set for you as homework is go back through the video and take, or the ebook as well, everything that's listed under these 5 human needs. I want you to write about them. Just that. I want you to write about being up to date, exercising, write about journaling. Under valued, I want you to write about being safe, being resonant, and trust. Under variety, I want you to write about novelty. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. Rewards and play. I want you to write about breathing, sleep, hydration, eat clean, and exercise. I want you to write about boundaries, circadian rhythm, and calm. I want you to write about those things because this will help. It'll keep the pathways open so that at some point you get the green tick, and you get more green ticks than not, and you accept the crosses. So again, if you haven't signed up for this is our big upsell. $17 to come along to this live event on the 3rd of December. It's in Knox, 2018, in case it's another year that you're watching this. How to become an expert depression therapist. It's the beginning of a teaching. So it's a 2-hour event that goes from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. where you get lots and lots of Q&A. It's not designed to make you an expert in 2 hours, obviously. It requires a lot of training. But how to become an expert depression hypnotherapist is the topic, and we discuss it at length. So if you're a professional in this field who wants to come along and wants to get some ongoing professional development, I would like you to come along to this thing. There'll be a link with an Eventbrite page where it's only $70 early bird, and you get as a bonus our entire How to Hypnotize an Addict course that has training that nobody else has put out before on the exact hypnosis procedure, how to do the idiomotor response, how to program people with their human needs. Thank you again so much for watching. I love this stuff. You guys have been great. It's such a joy to put these things out, to help people with these things, because we get that sometimes life can suck sometimes, and other times it's wonderful. But if you do these steps, life it's joy more often than it sucks if you do these steps. But if you can accept more and ask more, overall you'll be better off. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.